You're listening to Drinks and a Movie with your host, Rudy. Spoiler alert.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Drinks and a Movie podcast. Today, I'm going to start my quest. It's the beginning of 2026. It's January, 22nd as I record this. And I decided that this year, I wanted to make it a goal to watch every Oscar Best Picture winner. I'm planning to eventually maybe do a big podcast episode with like a group of people where we kind of talk about the Oscars. Like, is it even relevant? Like, where is it kind of gone haywire? Like, does it still matter? Because, yeah, this year, like as the last few years have been going on, and this year especially, it just feels like it's just not what it used to be and is kind of getting, I don't know, worse in a way. Not in that like the movies are any worse or anything like that, but it just doesn't have the same, I guess, level of prestige and respect as it did before. And, you know, just the landscape of filmmaking and theatrical releases has changed quite a bit. So I think there'd be an interesting discussion there. Actually, this morning, they just announced the nominees for what I believe is the 98th Oscars, I'm pretty sure. That'll be airing, I think, March 15th of this year or something. So yeah, maybe in the next month we'll have a full like big episode with some folks where we chat about it. But it just got me thinking, I mean, you know, when you look at the history of the Oscars, there's obviously a lot of heavy hitters, but a lot of kind of forgotten films. Like if you go through the nominees, it's funny how there's some years that are just stacked with like incredible films that are still talked about today that like didn't win. And then you get like the movie that is like the most forgotten is the one that got the big award, which is always interesting to me. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just going to get a little deeper into I wouldn't consider myself a cinephile, even though I watch a lot of movies. There's still so much I haven't seen. And I'm not somebody that, you know, I know people that literally would wake up hours early to like watch a movie before they went to their day job, you know, so they'd be up at like 5 a.m., throw on a movie, then get ready to go to work. And I'm definitely not on that level. But I think by the end of this, you know, I imagine this will probably take me the whole entire year to get through because there's still a lot of books I want to read and obviously editing and personal film projects and my day job. And I got to start taking care of my body better. There's a lot of stuff I've got to do. So hopefully within the year I can get through all these movies. Because yeah, if it is the 98th, I mean, that's 98 films I've got to watch. Now, there are some that I've already covered on the podcast at different points that I probably, I guess, depending on the movie, maybe I'll do an updated review on it and, you know, just to kind of follow the trajectory of this whole goal of watching all the Best Picture winners. But most likely I probably won't. I guess it'll go depending on the movie if I feel it's worth discussing again. But yeah, there's definitely a few that I've talked about, or a handful I've talked about already in previous episodes. So there's a good chance I'll skip those just for the sake of time. I mean, that's all, you know, James Bond was a pretty daunting task to watch all of those. And that was just 27 movies, right? Including the 2 non-official Eon films. And that took me, I think, 3 months or so. So yeah, to get through every single Best Picture winner. And there's some long ones. There's some super long movies. But anyway, let's get a little bit into the history. So the first Best Picture winner was a film called Wings that was made in 1927. And I believe the first Oscar or Academy Awards, I should say, was actually held. I had it pulled up here in 1929, I believe. And at that time, it was not televised at all. I think they gave out, there was only like a handful of people. I think it was 15 or maybe a little more people. And they actually had it in the Blossom Room of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. So that was Thursday, May 16, 1929, honoring movies released from August 1st, 1927 to August 1st, 1928. And at that time, they kind of did a weird thing where there was like 2 best pictures in a way. So there's Outstanding Picture, which would eventually become Best Picture. And then they did one that was Unique and Artistic Picture. That was a film called Sunrise. I'm not going to watch that. I'm just going to go with Wings from Paramount, which is, you know, considered like the first Best Picture winner. So that's what I watched. It stars Clara Bow, Charles Buddy Rogers, and Richard Arlen, and it was directed by William Wellman and Harry DeRost, uncredited. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I hope my headphones are okay. I feel like there's some kind of weird ringing going on. That's not good because these are brand new and they were very expensive. So this follows two young men, one rich, one middle class, who are in love with the same woman. They become fighter pilots in World War One. So this movie is 2 hours and 24 minutes. It's a silent film. So, and I will say, like, silent films, I have a good amount of patience and I'm a pretty serious movie watcher. But I mean, let's be real. In this day and age, with all the distractions, especially I've got so much stuff I need to do, it can be kind of daunting to sit and watch like a silent film, especially when it's 2.5 hours. But I did feel this one was pretty paced pretty well for the most part. It didn't feel super slow. The beginning does take a while to get going. We just kind of established the rivalry between these two characters. What are they, Jack and David? And the fact that, there's a kind of love triangle situation where there's a woman that, likes one of them. They both are in love with her and this and that. And then they end up getting enlisted. And then when they are in their training, that's like a big sequence in the movie, is them training to be pilots and doing all their ground training, and they become friends at one point. And now I will say, so pacing wise, it's pretty good. The story is kind of fine or whatever. I think this is a movie more for like its spectacle and its special effects, and its aerial photography. And I have to say, from that standpoint, and this, I mean, the story is good at points. There are some really good dramatic moments. Like there's a part where they're talking to their guy who I guess is like their little barracks mate or whatever. And then he immediately gets killed in like a plane crash. And there's this kind of oh shit moment between the two of them. And, there's some tense scenes when they're in battle and all that stuff. And the end, like there is a big emotional point at the end when one of them gets killed. I'll get into that a little bit later. I am going to be talking spoilers as always. And by the way, sorry, I realize I'm skipping the drink today because I'm doing this before I have to go to work. So I don't want to, drive and be under the influence or show up with booze on my breath. So just the way the timing worked out, no drink for this one. I know it kind of sucks. It's the first one of my best picture watch through series and I'm not even having a drink, but that's fine. We'll live with it. I'm also running out of stuff to drink too, and I can't really be spending a bunch of money willy-nilly like I used to. So if anyone wants to send me samples of stuff, that would be great. But anyway, where I do really appreciate this movie is in its special effects and the aerial photography. Like I said before, there are some really great shots and moments in this. And from a special effects standpoint, I would say that it holds up really, really well. I find myself, and I'm always amazed, like every once in a while, I'll throw on a silent film or just a really old movie. And I love when I'm taken aback by like the technical prowess and what people were achieving and pulling off in that era. In this one, I mean, definitely delivers on that. Like, amazing use of, again, aerial photography. I'm assuming there's a lot of miniature work throughout. There's moments that look like it might be miniatures, but then you see people walking in the frame and you're like, oh no, this is a real shot, like a real composition in to scale and all that. So there's a lot of amazing moments, like to the point where, we've been talking about the Lord of the Rings recently because I just rewatched that trilogy in theaters and how great the visual effects were in that for the most part, especially compared to some movies, today. And it's always crazy. We watch a lot of movies today, at least me, like, and I'm always like, God damn, this whole film is just like a visual effects CGI wonderland. And like no one's even stepping foot in a real place. And it gets kind of annoying. And then you see a film like this, I mean, 1927, that I'm going to say it outright. There's visual effects moments in this that look better than films today. And I'm telling you, the movie's on Tubi for free. You can just stream it. It's probably on YouTube as well. I'm pretty sure it went into the public domain, a decade or so ago. But so you can definitely find it and watch it. But yeah, man, just really amazing cinematography and special effects work where it feels real. Like it feels like they just mounted cameras onto these planes and they're out there flying around. And I'm sure for a lot of it, they literally are in the air. Like they've got to be, right? How they did that, how they pulled that off, I don't know. But there's even rear projection stuff that looks better in this movie than in like some of the early James Bond films. Matt and I talk about how we bump on some of the rear projection stuff. And I can only assume that there's moments in this film that are rear projection, and maybe it's the quality of the film and the vignetting or whatever that like helps it sell a little bit better. But I will say that aside, for a movie from 1927, the restoration of it, I think they restored it in 2012. I want to say that is on Tubi. I mean, it looks so good. It's amazing the amount of detail they're able to pull out of the what I imagine must have been the original negative to kind of restore it and update it. Like it looks so crisp and clean and nice and sharp and yeah, it's really good. One issue I did have that did kind of take away from the story element of it was the soundtrack. It was literally this kind of goofy, like what you'd expect probably from like a silent film, like a little piano player playing like a 2 minute, maybe a 3 minute piece of music, and then it literally loops that music for the whole 2.5 hours. And no matter what's happening, because there's moments of humor and levity and like comedy in the film, but there's also like, they're at war. People are getting killed, people are getting shot down and blown up, and there is a lot of dramatic moments. And it was a little frustrating for me because the music never changes. It's just this like, dun, 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 dun. I'm surprised it's not etched into my brain forever. The amount of times I heard this loop, this piano loop. So that was kind of a bummer. I think that's part of what took away from the story for me. And I couldn't help but think, I'm like, man, imagine if you did a re-release of this movie, but with a new soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. Like, imagine that. I think people would pay to see that, and I would. You think about some of the aerial stuff in the film, like Dunkirk or whatever. Was that Hans Zimmer or was that Ludwig? I don't remember. But honestly, any of these composers, you get Ludwig in there, you can get, John Williams, of course. Whoever. For some reason, Hans Zimmer really sticks out to me. Like this movie with the brand new, like original soundtrack or original score from Hans Zimmer, I think would be pretty amazing. So yeah, the music, really took away from some of those dramatic points. Now the shots and compositions are great and they do a good job at like selling and conveying some of the emotional dramatic moments, but when you're just hearing this goofy piano music, it kind of pulls you out. And a lot of people who are into cinematography probably already know there's a really famous, what would you call it? Like a zip line kind of wire shot in this movie. And it was great to finally, like I've seen the shot 100 times, but to see it in the context, it's another cool moment. Like there's a lot of great shots on this, I have to say, from a camera guy's perspective, but that it's not a dolly. It's definitely on like a cable or a wire zip line, whatever you want to call it. But there's a moment where they're at a nightclub and there's like a bunch of tables and people, and the camera just hovers through the people and through the tables and then lands on our main character kind of getting drunk with some lady at the end of the table. A more recent movie that actually like used that shot is Star Wars The Last Jedi, the Rian Johnson one that we all, I think, hate and despise. There's a moment where he does that shot. I think it's when they're in the casino. It's literally the exact shot from Wings. So it's kind of cool. And I know other movies have done it as well. I've definitely seen it in other places. I just can't recall them at the moment, but it's one of the famous shots. It's amazing again. And you think about how heavy these cameras were at that time, and it's definitely not on the dolly because it's like going over tables. So it's really cool. There's another great shot where they're pushing a plane out of a hangar. And this was a part where it almost looked like it was maybe miniatures, but it's not because it was real people pushing this plane out. But it's a complete overhead, like bird's eye view, pretty high up. So I don't know if the camera was on a helicopter or what, but it's up super high. And then all these guys like push out this plane. So you're seeing it from the top. It's got these huge wings and like the iron crosses on it. And then it takes off and goes in the battle. And I thought that was an amazing shot. Again, everything in the planes and the aerial stuff is really incredible and well done. And interesting, whenever they're firing their guns off, like the only bit of color is like the orange from the muzzle flashes of the machine guns they have on their plane. And there's a moment too, and I mean, I guess this kind of makes sense because it's pre-code, right? And I guess anything goes a little bit, but there's a moment where Clara Bow, I forget her name in the movie. Is it Mary? Yeah, Mary Preston. And this was just surprising to me. Like you never expect to see this in older movies, but it makes sense. Where she's changing, she got into a dress, out of her uniform into a dress because she's trying to like impress the guy that she loves, Jack, I think it was. And some soldiers walk in on her, and it's interesting because you practically see it's a split second, but there is like nudity, like she's topless for a moment and then just covers up with her hand. And it's like, I don't know, to me, you almost don't think about that stuff in like silent films, but again, with it being pre-code, there was a lot more kind of anything goes. And I'm not saying they show a lot of nudity or anything, but it just kind of took me by surprise. You would think that in that era, there would be like zero of that, or it would be 100%, just implied. But then that's a crazy moment too, where, she ends up getting kind of fired from the military because they think she's doing something she's not supposed to be doing, even though that's not the case. And I will say with that moment as well, she drives an ambulance and there's a part where they're like bombing this town. Again, I'm over here thinking it's miniatures, but this is like real sets and shit that they're blowing up, because then she comes driving into the frame and then getting like covered in rubble and all this stuff as well. So I'm like, shit, man, so much effort and just like work and set building went into this, and crazy stunt work, man, especially at that time. You got people, buildings falling on top of them and all that stuff. And it's all these real people. Costumes are great. And this isn't that long after World War I, which is interesting too. I will say the ending kind of sequence is kind of sad. What happens is we have the two friends, Jack and David. I like that David always carries his little bear with him for good luck too. It's something they set up early in the movie. And of course, the one time he doesn't take it with him, some bad stuff happens, but he gets shot down behind enemy lines. They think he's dead, but he survives. He steals a German plane and is trying to fly back to the Allies. But they don't know that it's him, of course, because it's an enemy plane. So then Jack goes up, and this is kind of that twist of fate moment where then his friend goes up, Jack, and his friend shoots him down. So they're all celebrating and happy, and they're like, all right, you should go see the body. And then Jack comes in, and it's like, oh shit, it's his friend. Like, he just shot down his best friend. They didn't know. And that is a sad moment in these close-ups and this part where he's embracing him. Like, it's a pretty powerful shot, pretty powerful moment. I just wish the music did not kill the vibe. It's such a bummer. It could have really worked if it weren't for this stupid piano track. Hans Zimmer, please give us a score. And then that's kind of like the big twist at the end. He ends up killing his friend. He dies. They're all good. Then he goes back home to the world, has to tell his parents. He gets the girl at the end. And yeah, I mean, ultimately a solid movie. And I think if you're a big film buff, a big cinema person, silent films, if they're kind of tough for you, I think this might be worth watching. And you know what? If you do watch it, though, I will suggest just throw on your own music. You know what I mean? Like, find a soundtrack you like and just play it while you're watching this movie. And, it might fare a little better that way. I did notice that Tubi had 2 copies of it on there. One had Clara Bow's name at the top. The other one didn't. And I chose the one that had her name. And then I went and I looked at the other one, because I was like, maybe the other one does have some kind of updated or different soundtrack. And it didn't. It just looked like a little not as good a copy, a restoration, but it had the same exact music. So I don't know why there's 2 different versions on Tubi. I would suggest pick the one that has Claire Bow on the top building. But yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, there we go. The first Oscar winner, silent film. Again, I believe those awards were held in 1929, non-televised, only a handful of people there. And it's crazy too. The Oscars are shenanigans, especially now more than ever, I feel. And it's wild. I was learning that apparently Louis B. Mayer kind of made it get started as a way to try to stop people from unionizing. And I don't know, you'll have to look into it yourself, but it sounds like he was definitely kind of a prick about the whole thing. And it was just about trying to stop people from raising up and money and all that stuff. Rich people stuff. Rich people trying to keep other folks down is kind of the vibe I got. But I don't know all the true history. I got to cross-reference, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I mean, it is the fact that he was trying to stop people from unionizing or whatever. And he has a quote. What is that quote? Basically about all I got is, hold on, I have to find it. Yeah, so apparently he stated that the Academy Awards were created because, quote, I found that the best way to handle filmmakers was to hang medals all over them. If I got them cups and awards, they'd kill themselves to produce what I wanted. That's why the Academy Award was created. Revealing its origins as a tool to manage labor, boost morale, and control Hollywood's burgeoning unionization efforts by offering prestige instead of union benefits. So that's something I got to keep looking into. I think that's pretty interesting. And if you have any care about any of that, I think you should look into it as well. But yeah, that's going to be it, everybody. That's the first of my every Academy Award Best Picture winner series. Up next, I think I already forgot the movie, but you'll hear it when it comes out. I'm probably going to be inconsistent with my release schedule. We'll see. I'm going to try to keep the podcast going every week, but I've just been super busy. I'm hanging on for dear life over here, hence the hiatus I was on for a while. But I'm going to try and get this going. I'm not only going to do all the Best Picture winners. I'm still going to do some new movies, some other movies I love and want to talk about and whatnot. And hopefully I'll be able to get some guests on for this Oscar series. But it is tough. It's kind of hard to convince friends to like, hey, I need you to sit and watch a 2.5 hour silent film. I don't know many people that are up for that, or, watch this other film from 1930. And even me, there's going to be a lot of musicals coming. I don't like musicals. There's going to be like the biblical kind of sword sandal epics that are going to be 3.5 hours long. I'm not into that stuff. But, I'm going to reach a new tier of movie watching love. So anyway, I think that'll be a wrap on this one, everybody. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, follow on Instagram at drinks_and_a_movie pod. I think it is. I'm also on Letterboxd now. So I'm trying to keep track of what I watch because I always forget. You can find me at Rudy_DAAM. as in Drinks in a Movie. I might have to change that username. Hopefully I can change it. But I am on Letterboxd if you want to follow me on there and kind of see what I've been watching and all that. But yeah, that's a wrap on this one, everybody. I'll see you next time. Cheers. Thank you for listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks in a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksinamoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.